And we're live. Welcome to Ragin' With. We've got a special guest this evening, John Celestri. Make sure that you are hitting the subscribe button and share this out with your friends because we are simulcasting to multiple networks, and they include Comics in More New Jersey, Geek Insider, Indie Volt, as well as Ragin' AVC. That's right, hit the button. We're Ragin' With John Celestri, and we'll be right back after this.
Ragin'.
Asian. Hagen.
That's right, everybody. We are Raging with John Celestri. Oh my God! Put down the knife, John. Put down the knife. We're going to be talking about
a spaghetti sauce day. You got me at.
Sure it is. Sure it is. Hi, John. How are you?
Hi, hi, Meredith.
It's one of my favorite photos, and I just thought it was perfect, because I read Bloodwing Angel Chronicles, and are you the demon? Are you the demon? Are you the good guy?
I am all of them. I'm Mychal.
Well, I love sitting with creators who have a whole plethora of work behind them, because we get to pick at your brain a little bit and talk about the creative journey. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you've sat in this chair with us, maybe on different shows and stuff. But take us back a bit to young John and when you decided that illustration, comic books, and art was what you were going to do.
It was in my blood right from the word go. In the family, at least on my mom's side, there were a lot of artists. In Italy, it goes back a long way. So I had the gene pool in there. My dad was his father was a barber, so he had a very good, and back in the day, we're talking about the 1890s,
the straight blades.
Yes. He was a barber in Bel Air, Ohio, Wheeling, West Virginia, coal mining. Town. So he had a very, very, very sure and scout and surgeon aspect. Well, because that's what they were doing. Also, I mean, that's what a barber pole is a bloody rag, and so therefore a barber took care of teeth and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So they had to know what they were doing with a knife. Anyway, so we go back to it's in my blood to use my hands, as you could see, and so
I thought that was the Italian.
Hey, what do you think? Why do you think I was gesturing with that cutting blade?
I'm telling you. I think it would be a fun thing if your wife came up behind you and kind of held your arms, would just stop talking, because I've seen people do that. It's kind of funny.
Well, you know what? I can use my eyebrows really well too. I've been an animator for a long time doing dialogue.
I love it.
In fact,
so the creative journey. I'm sorry, we kind of got off track there a little bit.
It'll go back and forth, curl and uncurl. Anyway,
with the steady hand.
Yes, very steady hand. Okay, so I've got my hand. I've got my steady hand here, and that's what you need for the way I look at it this way. Ever since I was maybe about 4 or 5 years old, I think about 4, when I first saw a cousin from Bel Air draw Mickey Mouse for me. And I was marveling at how he was drawing the circles and turning it into something. And so from that point on, what I had in here and in here had to come out from here, the pencil. And so there's always been a direct connection from what's inside of me into my fingertips, and that's what comes out onto the pencil page, and that is why I feel everything. I'm not one of those people who draw, intellectual and then it's just mark it down like that. No, I'm feeling it so that I'm drawing with lines and feeling like molding with clay. I'm molding the movement on the page, and I'm feeling it come out. That's why I don't like drawing on plates, on a Cintiq, because there is a fraction of a second delay. It's maybe about I would say 2 frames, 2 or 3 frames, which is like equivalent a 12th or an 1/8 of a second. But I hate that because there still has to go through. There is something that's different. And other people say, well, that doesn't bother me. It bothers me. And I'm old enough that I can say, I don't want to do it. So anyway, so I've always had that thing. And it's just going through my journey. It's always been basically the same thing of wanting to express what was inside onto the page. So it goes
that translation of, because I've got a lot of visions in my head too. And I tell people all the time, I wish I could draw. But that translation going down my arm, I feel that, but I do that with words.
Yes.
When you started, you probably started off with doodling, crayons and things like that. And at what point, in maybe school, in your youth or whatever, did you say, yeah, maybe art school, or maybe finding a job as an illustrator, an animator, graphic designer? I mean, getting a job in the arts is very difficult because a lot of times, especially if your parents aren't in that field, they're like, well, that's nice, dear, but how are you going to pay the bills?
Exactly. And that's what happened was that, they said, yeah, it's a good hobby, but, artists starve. And so therefore, so I never went to art school. I'm self-taught. And so everything, including animation, it's all self-taught. And the aspect of it all, the curiosity to me is that even though I went to I was always on an academic plane of going to school, going to college, going to university. Back then in the 60s, it was either you were a student or you were in the draft. That's Vietnam going on at the time. So, so I had to find something that, what could I do? And it took me I never really completed college. I spent 5 years in college, but it finally said, okay. And it went from architecture to art to communication arts to math to back to communication arts, that sort of thing. And it was a back and forth. But I learned to pull all of my various talents into the creative process, so that being an art, a writer as well as an artist, organization of your thoughts and cause and effect, and understanding human beings and what drives them is the stuff of story. That's basically what you need to have. And if you don't have all of that behind you, understanding, all you're going to do is a somewhat competent imitation of something that you've read before. Whereas if you are bringing life experience into your work, then you have something to say. But a writer can only, like I've co-written five novels with my wife Kathy. I've written, novellas. I've written comic books. I've done all sorts of comic strips, things of that sort. But you keep molding and developing your ability to have a coherent train of what happened, who is fighting whom, for what purpose, not just fist fighting, but who are in competition with each other, who is trying to get something from somebody else. This is the stuff of story that will either make it interesting if you're able to make it a very compelling story, not just plot wise, but character wise. That is what will bring readers and viewers back to your work. And there is a lot that goes into it. It's not just about being able to do a flash page or a pinup, or even, the decent sequential art. What are you drawing about? What is it? And you as a writer know that number one thing is story and character. And without that, everything else is just, is just frosting.
Well, that's it. You have to be able to reach your audience on an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so when it comes to you kind of putting your thumbnails together for your books, what is your process as far as doing the storytelling with your art? Because there are a lot of people who I think when they're coming out of the gate, the mistake is that they're not really seeing that story arc. They're not worried about the page turn and things like that. What are some of the tips and tricks that you can give people when it comes time to laying out those thumbnails and those page layouts?
Well, the biggest thing that I found is that I write down ideas of just a little bullet point. I think in terms of bullet points and scenes, but I don't just start on page one and work it. I will start by just jotting down an idea on a Post-it note, and just taking that and slapping it on to an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then I have another idea and do this and put it on there, and then I just keep on going. I don't have any here, but that's basically what is done. Wait, maybe just hold.
Okay. He's going to show us stuff, you guys.
Right behind me is my board here. Okay, let me just show you, script. But
oh, yes.
Before I got to that, this is where I was. Okay. Yes. See that?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah, this is it. These are all ideas, bits and pieces of thoughts that I put in here. Then I will start and then start writing down a bullet point of what sequentially they seem to me to what makes sense, and I keep moving things around because but I do have a beginning, middle, and end. What's the point they're trying to make? And then a lot of people will say, well, I need to tell you the backstory. No, you don't have to tell me my backstory. If you can't get your character right from the word go, bang, today's audience doesn't have the patience to turn to page 2 to find out what's going on. the whole thing is if you don't grab them, and I learned this one from from writing mystery novels and thrillers, because we did that. The series, crime fiction. If you don't get them you have to grab them by the first sentence.
Mhm.
That is the first thing. Then you could if you grab them with the first sentence, then you can get them down to the last line of page 1, and then make them turn the page to page 2, and keep on going.
Now, John, how many pages do you give a book before you put it down if you're not into it?
If you're not into it, 4.
I was going to say, be honest.
Yeah, 4, 5.
Yeah.
You can tell, because you can tell if the pacing is. You can tell if there is something going on. You can now maybe your thing is all kinds is a sense of place, or so. Well, if you're being grabbed by that, well, then the author has done their job. But if you are somebody who just wants to know what's going inside, who am I? Okay, here's another thing. Who are you rooting for? You need to know on that first page, who are you rooting for?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about comic books. And to me, that's the big thing, for sequential art, you have to know, people do not have the patience to go for 12 or 13 pages before you introduce the main character. The setting is something that just, like mood, it all has to be blended together into a panel or two. That's you could do your flash page or panel, that gets you that's the oomph. And if you look at the classic comic books, they all had that.
It's probably that thing. Yeah, that thing where it's like, okay, we might be losing their attention. Pow! There you go.
Right. Well, in the beginning, they would say, like, this is it. What's going on here? This is. We don't tell you the whole story. It's the idea is, okay, what's the hook? Hook them in. Don't just give me like it was a dark and stormy night. I've seen that.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, so that is the most important thing I found, is that first you just throw your ideas together, and then what you're interested in, what is their characters' motivations. You write the whole backstory first. When we did our crime fiction novels, we did the backstory for each one. We each had at least 2 or 3 pages of the main character as to how they got there.
So that backstory was something you never shared. It was just something that you did for character development. Okay.
Yes, and then you have an understanding as to why the character is the way the character is. But if you can then put it into play, into the development, then you start saying, well, hey, how do I make use of that backstory without it being a flashback?
Mm-hmm.
There could be a cause of argument between a mother and a daughter.
Right.
You're arguing about what happened in the past, but you already have experienced it, and you're not just making it up, because you know what the dialogue is. The characters are now talking about their relationship as to why they just can't stand each other. And
right.
so if it fleshes out the character, and then the character starts writing him or herself, and then the conflicts come into play. Then they start going back and forth, and then sometimes you have a twist and turn that they say, oh, I think this is interesting because the character wants to go and do something, but you've got to be able to have your guideposts, and that's what plot is. The structure is the plans of the house, you know that for it to stand, has to be a certain amount of the foundation has to be there, the four walls, everything is there. But then you start decorating it. You add a little bit here and there and whatnot, but it's going to stand because you know that the pillars are there, and then and the pillars are weight bearing struts and what have you are all going to be there, and then you know that the story will go, even though they might have a little detour here or there, but then you can come right back to it. So
yeah, that's the architect talking. I hear the architect.
Yes, you see, there you go. That's it. And then for me, you have the chemistry. Is how many you have to. Each character has to represent something. It's earth, wind, fire, rain, what have you. And you have to be able to say, okay, I may have 2 or 3 of the similar types of characters. Well, I'll combine them into one and then get rid of somebody else, But you have to have one. Each one has to represent something different. So, and that's all part of structure. Again, architecture. And so
I love the fact that you were able to show your sticky notes and things. Sticky notes have saved my life when it comes to storytelling. Because I love the idea of writing down those quick ideas so that you don't lose them.
Right.
And then it might not fit right there, but I hate throwing out words.
Yeah,
I do. Or just a little nugget, whether it's a piece of dialogue or anything like that. So when it comes to putting your book together, do you kind of start more with a writer's brain or an artist brain?
Well, it's almost a simultaneous thing for me, because I've always told my stories. I visualize them. I can see them in my head, but at the same time, I do a lot of what if, and that's a writer's thing. I am not big on just writing words for the sake of words. I am not poetic, but I will cut to the bone dialogue. I will cut to the bone anything that does not push a point across, or what is it? Expose or show development in the character. A point I want to make. Now, you remember there's a sequence in Bloodwing Angels in episode 1, and Mychal is in the hole, right? Is in the cave, and Mychal is really ticked off at the gods that are out there. And they're just saying, I've done all this stuff, and so on and so on. And, that is the most extensive amount of dialogue, but there's a lot of anger and ranting out. Like you're saying, I did all this right, and you didn't, you said, on and on.
And you still sent me away.
Yeah, and you still sent me, you still got blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, now, was it too long for you?
No.
Okay. Now, why?
Probably because I have a reader's brain.
Okay.
But I do like storytelling. I like the development. Like, you can clearly see that there was emotion there. There was anger, confusion. It's like, where am I? What the heck am I doing here? Kind of thing.
Okay.
And so that development was, in a way, a build up, and I was kind of surprised. I think it was in episode 2, like how they got there. I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's only because they're trying. Yeah, it was in episode 2 that that's the reveal. you know, of how they got there. Now that is a flashback, but when you see episode when you started with episode 1, the first page is just being thrown out, you know, like a bat out of hell, which it basically, you know, as an angel is tossed out of heaven, you know,
Right.
for what reason, you know, and just so anyway, but the point I was going to make is that did Mychal feel female at that point when there is anger and betrayal when it was going on, you know, at the base of that cavern, and the reason I say that is because one person, a guy who was reviewing it, said, looking at it and saying, I said, well, it kind of went on and on and on, you know, kept on spinning. I said, that's because she's female. She's not going to let it go. You know, there's a
Wait a minute, John.
No, wait a minute. He would. His point was, you said it, and that was it. Now you're not going to let it go. You know, it was only at the most. It was like 5 minutes worth of dialogue, and you tell me that somebody who has done all that is done. Betrayal is really, I think, is even felt worse by a female than a male, or will express it differently. See, this is
maybe
pardon?
expressed. You know, because it's kind of funny too, because and this is where the emotions comes into play, because it's kind of funny. When I read it, I didn't have any idea which one it was, because when you're dealing with emotion, it's universal as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You know, having said that, I think my husband's probably more emotional than I am, because Nita will tell you, she's like, I'm ice.
Well, you know, it really, I mean, Italians are emotional all over. I mean, male and female, we're all emotional.
And animated with their hands and everything.
That's right. Well, the thing about, you know, Mychal is both male and female. So therefore, you know, where is the blending? You know, what is the female aspect of that? The female aspect is betrayal and saying, I did what you asked me to do and I'm doing it. So the male part is going to say, well, F you, I'm going to go and do it. Now, what I'm saying is that it's a male and female thing, not as a gender thing, but as an aspect of personality. I have no, there is the compassion versus the vengefulness. They're the opposites and about human emotion. So therefore, how do you play your characters? That's, you know,
I think the interesting thing about it too is that Mychal is coming from heaven, or, you know, the ring of angels, if you will, and probably never felt all of these things, you know. So it's like, you know, it kind of begs the question, when's the last time you did something for the first time, and what did it feel like? How did you react? And so that was where, because I'm not sure it was Earth, because you were talking about a wall, you know, like a wall of protection. I'm like, are they on Earth? I wasn't quite sure about that. But then but it's like, okay, now you get thrown into a whole new area. You don't know what the heck is going on. All of a sudden, you're like, all of the things that you were able to do are gone. And so then that whole thing with those basic emotions that we have, fear, anger, joy, you know, you can go across age groups, ethnicities, it doesn't matter. And when you hit those emotions, they all look the same.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, again, so here we are. We're talking about an approach of what I'm doing. With how I'm approaching this series. In a more mature way in terms of the storytelling and what I want to get across, and I'm not just going to do demons and whatnot, and monsters and fighting, and there is a lot that goes on. I mean, as you know, in one of the early pages, you see Brooklyn, you see you see the Combs family, going on.
Hold on.
Doggy.
Yeah, it's my dog. It's about that time. Hold on a second. You know what? This is a great time to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Oh my gosh, my dog. Here we go. We're going to take a little break. And I apologize for my dog, but here you go. For a 10% discount on your Gemini mailers, make sure that you use coupon code VOLT10. That's right. You can go to GeminiComicSupply.com and save some money. That's right. 10% discount on your Gemini mailers. Use coupon code VOLT10. That is courtesy of Indie Volt. Thank you to Varian Grant. We are also simulcasting to Comics in More New Jersey, Geek Insider, Indie Volt, as well as RAGIN AVC. Hit the button. We are RAGIN with John Celestri. He is sharing a bit about his creative journey. We're talking about Bloodwing Angel Chronicles, and I'm going to drop the card here. I haven't killed the dog. It survived.
Yes.
But I don't know for how long.
There you go.
It always happens. It always happens. I'm going to blame my husband.
Yes.
Shh, he just got home from work. So go back to work.
Yes.
Just kidding. Just kidding. I love him. One of the interesting things that you said earlier when we first started talking was that you said, I am Mychal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, there's an aspect of both, in terms of both. Everybody has a certain amount of male and female within each other. And it's how well you understand the balance of what personal. It's like there are things that I can understand and relate to by the fact that when I was a young kid, young child, my mother said, you're just too sensitive. Now, those are the things that are allowed for a girl to be sensitive, but not for a guy. So you have to sort of, build up that muscle as a boy to understand that. But at the same time, it didn't make me any less sensitive. I just was kept in tune. And so therefore, there is that aspect that I feel very strongly about things. And so, but that also at the same time, there's a part of me that says, I feel for you, but that's it. And so there is the male part of me. So I can go back and forth. I've done so many different characters that are both male and female in my career that I understand what is the thoughts and what is it about each other that the other, what does Mars not understand about Venus? That's basically
to be able to make it relatable, because as a storyteller and as a writer, you have to try and reach both audiences, and it has to feel organic. It has to feel like you really know, like you can really speak from that person's point of view, whoever
Yeah.
it is that you're
Yeah.
writing about, you know,
Yeah.
because you're developing all of these worlds.
Yes, and the thing about it is that you, you have characters who are very cold and they're female, but at the same
Mhm.
time, there is an aspect of how a female would do a bit of of sinning versus what a guy would be doing. I mean, there are certain things that are just, or how a female would kill, or how they would relate to a child. There are different ways of doing that, and if you some things, when you hear when you see something that's you hear or read something that's written, or you watch a show and you say that person did not understand, the writer did not understand what a person goes through in that character. That's because they just were just writing to maybe stereotypical stuff, or they were just trying to hit a a plot points or beats or what have you, and that was that. Again, I'm trying to pull all of that into my writing, into this story. So as the character of Mychal is, as I said, is both male and female, and so therefore you have to understand what it's like to be in their shoes, so to speak,
Right,
or
right. But
what
yeah, I
have
mean
you.
that speaks to like what was the last time you did something for the first time? You know, were
Yeah,
you scared? Were you excited? You know, were you angry? You know, all of
well,
those things come into
yeah.
play.
Well, I'll pull. You could take go through the books, and you could see a lot of metaphors everywhere. There
Mhm.
weren't things that they were consciously done, but once you start, if you are on a path in which you are being honest and truthful, you can then, when you look back at having after you finish writing something or creating something, you can say, I subconsciously put in all of these things because this is the truth I was trying to tell.
Mhm.
And I will put this first one because it's the big, it's a first major one, is that when Mychal is being shot out, and you see the first page and it's just shot out, it's just like a bolt of lightning going through the universe. They're ripping up the shreds of reality, and then
Mhm.
it being restitched. Suddenly everything has been changed. When Mychal lands into the earth, it is basically, the birth aspect, because Mychal lands into a hole and it just bursts and transforms from what was an angel, an ethereal being, into a physical being, and then the wings get back into the body, and then it's a matter of trying to survive and get out of the body.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of kicking and screaming that goes on, and when you have
And why?
a mother,
Why?
but a mother will hear the baby kick,
Mhm.
and
But you
so
also have, a secondary story going on here.
yes, yes, I've got the Combs family,
Mhm.
about the Earth, and that's the family that we will show. I will show how basically that's the connection between Josh and Mychal. And so, in the future, you will see the young Josh, who's kind of a teenage, maybe he's 18, 19, 20 years old, and will eventually, meet up with Mychal, who is both male and female, and do sparks fly. Are there
Mhm.
what's going on between the two of them at some point? Because Mychal is still now semi-mortal and will now experience all the various things that what someone does, as a human being, as a mortal. So that's all part of a secondary story. But there's also Mychal becoming the guardian angel for that family,
Right.
because you're full. There is that the 1717 club, the gangsters, that are across the street in the
Mhm.
neighborhood. So there is a lot that is going on, and I'm introducing it little by little, but there is a whole fleshed out, story that there is a world of characters that can't be contained within 24 pages. That's why I had to give you at least 48 pages worth of book to at least begin to develop them. And then the same thing with the next 48 pages where I'm developing even further, and they do come together, or at least they start to come together, So at the end of 96 pages, we're going good here,
Right. Well, I was going to say, because I saw episode 1 and then I saw episode 2, and when I got to the last page, I'm like, that can't be the end of episode 2. I think you were just kind of teasing me a little bit for the next issue.
Right. Well,
love
what
those
else?
Cliffhangers. I love them and I hate them because now I have to wait.
Well, it's either, if you really want to, when you're doing everything by yourself, how do you do something of this? It doesn't make sense to have to do a 300-page book, and wait 5 to 7 years before something comes out.
Right.
I don't have that
It's
time.
so big. Yeah. So let me ask you then really quickly then. Because we know that this is a continuation and you've got the story in your head.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time when you went like, oh my gosh, it's too big. How am I going to get this done?
No, I look at it as a comic strip.
Okay.
There are phases in the story that there are sections of the story that will come to a point and say, okay, this is when they meet. Okay, we're going on and on and on. So if I can get you to keep turning the pages, that's all that really matters, because I know that there is a whole lot right now. I did a novella. I mean, this is all based on a novella that I published back in 2013 on Amazon. And so that was, that goes on for a while. I changed, and then I tried to develop it as a TV series. So I added more elements into it. And so, there is a long line of material that will be there. And there is a great deal of tone and a lot of uncensored believability. That's why I did not try to do the, like, oh, she's cute. Oh, the hair is, I did figure out what to do with the hair, but you'll see what happens. Well, that, the hair gets all tangled up with the wings and then clunk, and that's, there's an issue of how to get up out of that hole,
The hole, right?
Yeah. Well, that was solved. That's all part of it. And, there's a little bit of modesty that goes into it. I'll put it this way. Remember this, I say, guys are always fascinated by how women can turban their hair with the towel and all of that. Well, Mychal does the same sort of thing with the with her hair, and that's huge.
Now, I'm going to pull up something because you are sharing this. Tell us a little bit about this. What are we looking at? That's my thumbnail.
That is that is how I draw my first page. Now,
you weren't kidding about like the emotion. It's just like you're basically kind of slapping stuff on there.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. The aspect to all of this is that it's a character. It's how can I say? this monster snaps into three pieces and starts attacking Mychal and whatnot. But this is how I thought. This is this is kind of like a real first animator's rough. Like each one of those poses, I think of, in terms of what each character is doing. I'm trying to think about what's the paneling. How do I flow this so that it's not just squared and rectangles. Now I can.
That's one of the things that I've enjoyed about your book is that it isn't just square, square, square. It's there is a certain flow to it that isn't necessarily bound because of those square boundaries.
Yeah, well, that's the part of a comic book, that's sequential art, but it's also trying to make the page a piece of art and an interesting piece of art and flowing and not worry about it, trying to make sure that you understand where your eyes should be. Now, when you have a lot going on, you still have to be able to focus something. Now you'll see that I can pull up the next page, but I have to remove this here. I could put the next one up and you can see the difference, okay?
Oh yeah,
so
I would love to see the progression.
Okay, so I have to stop this screen here. And then I will share this next one up here. And
while he's pulling that up, you guys, so this is Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. I've got my copy here. And it is in demand right now on IndieGoGo. So if you are watching either live or on the replay, check out the show descriptions because we've got the links to John's social media as well as his IndieGoGo. John, how long is this going to be in demand?
Well, right now it's let's see, it's until the until I launch the next the next campaign. I will be doing a pre-launch September 15th for a month.
Oh, okay, very good.
So I have a pre-launch page. And if for those who sign up on this pre-launch page and actually, actually support me with a physical, with a physical book, they'll have a 12-page ash can of what my work process, and they will see these, they will see pages and all of this and explanations and see the full size of what I do. So this is the next stage. From what you saw before, this is the next stage. And this is still same size of the page. So now I've changed, you now can see where Mychal is here, swooping out, going at, snakes, going after Mychal in various ways. I try to do all different things. I mean, even having, tongues going out of the snake's nose, trying to grab Mychal right there. There's a lot of different things where you can study and look at. And so this is what you saw first was the first thumbnails and first images.
Well,
this is how
that looked so messy, and I mean, it's kind of like organized chaos in a way.
Yes,
kind of like my desk.
Yes.
It's like don't touch my stuff. I know where everything is. So so I saw the red, the blue, the green pencils in there, and so when it comes, when you're doing that, when you're doing your initial sketches and you're pulling out your pencils and things like that, and the different ideas are coming out, how do you from that edit down to this?
Well, very quick. They're all exactly the same thing. I just did the energy. The first page that I showed you was full of vectors and forces and dynamics. That's what animation is. That is showing the abstract energy of what you're trying to show. Things like exploding from each other. Well, you don't have to show all that. Just say, and then I put in the forms over that energy. That's what I've done, on this stage.
And so when you go from this stage now, what is the next stage where you start to ink, or is it more fine tuning?
Well, that's my that is basically my my blue pencil and black pencil, but that's the inking stage, and I'll show you that right after, when I get through this here. Okay, and
very cool. Yeah, so we're literally seeing a page, and it's progress, which for me, because I'm not an artist, I find fascinating, because again, it goes to that whole thing where I wish I could take what I see in my head, because it's weird. Every once in a while, I think in panels and pages, not just the movies. It's like, how do I translate that? It's like, no, I don't have the motor skills to do the drawing part. I can type though. Oh my goodness. Well, so this is the inks then.
These are the inks. Now, what I've done is that they're on different levels. Mychal, I drew that like 4 times the 400% up, so I could reduce it down because I wanted to show this, in detail. Mychal in detail, same way in that way. If I drew it in full, now this would be like 300 times up, and then I reduced it down. But you still would see. You have to see everything. Like I don't have, when you draw on 10 by 15. With a pencil or even with a brush, you can't get the thin line, enough to get all that information in there. So I drew it very large, and then you reduce it down, but it's all there. So that's why you see a lot of this. You see a lot of see-throughs here. That's because it's all superimposed. The backgrounds, what I did was. That were on separate levels. You see there's some trees here and what have you, and they're all the same on a different level, but they were drawn with a pencil the same way. But when I put it in, it's now at 50% of opacity. So you see a gray line, but it's faded out, and so when it's colored, the backgrounds won't pop out. I wanted to have some way of having the feeling of the tone, but I just didn't want them to compete. And so again, the black is there and whatnot, and so for the actual characters, and that's the strength there. And with the there my integrating the sound effects of the is into swaps, shits, and because it hits and it becomes shits, and
very
then the same thing with
snake-like.
Snake-like. So this is the process that I've gone. I've shown you the thumbnails. I've shown you the post-it notes, then the thumbnails, then the real rough of putting together the forms, and then the final line on that. And that's why I get some texture, and I can get a thick and thin. If you look and you see, it's not all the same line, but this is all with pencil. It's not. I'm not using. I'm not using an ink brush or a pen. The thing is that I'll thicken up the line. I'll just go up on. Sometimes I'll thicken thin, but then I'll go over it a second time and add to it, so that it's not all the same evenness.
Very cool. Now, so we've only got a couple more minutes left before we are at the end of our hour. Is it okay if I read the first page of the book?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. So you guys ready for story time here? And this is Bloodwing Angel Chronicles, and this is
Yep.
episode 1. So we open up the page here, and there's a note from John. I'm not going to read that, but the legend. I would like to share this so that people kind of get an idea of what they're getting and what's to come. So here we go. In the beginning, Creatus the Almighty formed all angels as perfect androgynous beings, each with a free will. Some drifted away from Creatus and into the darkness led by the prime angel Shadow. Those who stayed closest to Creatus remained as angels of light. Those who strayed the furthest became demons. Those who are in the middle existence are physical beings. All creatures are angels. Some are humans, some are animals. They live for a time, die, and return to repeat the process, switching back and forth between genders and species, until they either become angels of light or demons of darkness. This is the constant struggle all beings must endure, as angels of light can fall into the darkness, becoming demons, as can demons return to the light. And then it goes right into Mychal introducing themselves. And I am looking forward to the second book. You've got a pre-launch page coming up on September 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who wants to get the first book, make sure that you go over to IndieGoGo and get Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. It's in demand right now. I'm sure that you're going to have that available for the second campaign.
I will, yes, but I will make it available for anybody who wants it, and then or the ones who want to catch up. But the second book will be separate, or you could buy them both together or separately, what have you. That's I'm not going to play this game of you've missed out on it, so you can't. How is anybody going to know what's going on? So
right.
yeah.
So that begs the question then. People should stay with the story then as the continuation, because
Yes.
You probably can't pick up book 2 and know what's going on.
Well, I will give you. I put 2 pages of a backstory, images from the previous book, so that you have an idea, a starting off point. But why, why
That's
not
a great
have
question.
everything? Why? What? You're going to. I think I'm making it. The book is right now. If you just bought the book, it's like $15. It's like $10 plus $7 shipping. And that's for a 52-page book like this. That's almost the equivalent of what you'd pay per page from a mainstream comic now. So you can get it now, and or wait until I pitch up. But that's you just yeah.
Either way, it's available, you guys.
Go and some books,
yeah. Go and get the book. Put it in your library and wait for it. I mean, I am looking forward to this. Now, with how many? I don't know that you told us. How many episodes in this? How many books? And do you plan on putting this into an eventual trade paperback when it's all said and done?
Okay. If you look and see, this is how you can tell what book it is. If you look where it says Bloodwing Angel on the cover, you'll see a number 1.
Yes.
And then you'll see that Bloodwing Angel 1. So the B, and then the next one will have 2 and 3 and 4. So we'll have that. I do not know how many episodes there are, because as it keeps growing, and developing, it just keeps on. It just goes. But remember, put it this way: this is where I'm going for the I'm in the third stage of my act of my career, and so I plan to do this for the next however long I can hold the pencil. So, what I'm trying to do is the next one is like, and again, another 52 pages. After that, I might do may do it as another 30 or 32 pages, and then come out with a hardback or a trade paperback version, but also another 24 pages on top of that. It'll just keep on going. The story, I mean, I'd love to get feedback from people who have read it, and that way that they could see that I'm giving them an honest amount of work and creativity as much as I can possibly do. And
One of
so
the one of the interesting things that we had Dustin Brunel sitting in the hot seat with us, and he said that sometimes his comic books aren't always like your 24, 32 page books, because it depends on the story. He's very story driven. And he said, if I have to add a couple pages, I will to get the story across.
Right.
And so I kind of feel like you're doing that, because you don't want to rush a story either. You don't want to pull it like taffy, so it's
Right.
just finding that balance and finding like where that good cliff hanger is, so that your readers will go, hey, when's the next one coming?
Right. And what I've done with this one is, instead of it, and besides there being the 2 episodes for Mychal, so it's episode 3 and episode 4. Well, it comes to, there is episode 3 is 30 pages. Episode 4 is 11 pages. But what I wanted to do was do a standalone afterwards, after that, and that comes at the end of the book. It's a 7-page standalone with the 1717 Club, the gangsters, and why, and a standalone story in the same style, or rather a feeling, as an Eisner Spirit book, an old story. And that way you could see what the characters are doing. That's a standalone in a beginning, middle, and end to that, and you can see what kind of characters the Combs family are dealing with, and who else is out there. So you're getting a lot of material there, and so.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah. So we are just past our hour.
Yeah.
What I like to ask our guests is if you can ask. Well, no. Let me ask this one. For anybody new who's coming in to the business, what would be your best piece of advice?
Coming into the business, story, learn story, but not just about plot. It's character. It's what makes people tick. If you understand what makes people tick and how they react to things and what their motivations are, you don't have to wait for someone to tell you what kind of story. You just imagine it yourself, and that's the simplest thing.
Well,
because
John,
you got to draw it or write it, whatever.
Well, as long as you have the skill, because you're like the triple threat. You get to write it, you can do the art, and I think you letter as well.
I do everything.
You do everything. You do the colors too.
Everything, letter and coloring, the whole thing.
Yeah. See, I have to pay for art. I guess I need to get some practice with my drawing. Nobody will buy my books if I do that. They'll be like, I'll pay you to take it away. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Yep. Yes,
John
you do.
Celestri, it has been a pleasure sitting with you. I'm going to put the card up here. And again, we have been raging with John Celestri. Bloodwing Angel Chronicles is on demand at IndieGoGo. Make sure that you get your copy today. And, keep an eye out for him. Follow him on his social media because September 15th, he is launching his pre-launch page. And you want to get in on that action because he's got something special for those who are physical backers. On that note, you guys have a great evening. Hey, John, do me a favor.
Yes.
Say, throw my dudes.
Throw my dudes.
We're out of here. Thank you.